You ever mourn the loss of something that's not dead? Something that's right in front of you, but it's a shell of what it used to be? That's how I'm feeling about Call of Duty these days. Call of Duty was always my first love. From Call of Duty 4 all the way up to even Advanced Warfare. I loved the games. I was playing them all the time, every single year. It was one of the major releases every year that I was always looking forward to. I could rely on Call of Duty to be exactly what I wanted, a polished multiplayer arena shooter that was a great social experience and a great gameplay experience. But it truly is a shell of itself. I'm sure you all have seen that clip of the 3 crossover skins being, I think it was Ninja Turtles, Beavis and Butthead, and Peter Griffin, all assassinating each other in a Warzone match or something. And it's just sad to see what Call of Duty once was versus what it is now. At this point, Call of Duty is just adult Fortnite, and not in a good way. It's just an opportunity for Activision to sell a bunch of crossover skins and bait a bunch of fanboys of those particular IPs to go into Call of Duty and buy a skin. Meanwhile, they just completely ignore all the problems with the game itself, but it's fine because people are continuing to buy a bunch of skins and they're making a bunch of money off it, so why would they waste their time by fixing the anti-cheat or fixing the game mechanics when they can just continue to sell more Beavis and Butthead crossover skins? Sorry, I'll take a breath. It's just sad to me because whenever I started playing Call of Duty, it was a grounded military arena shooter where you were soldiers in an arena fighting against each other. That was it. And the craziest thing in the games were some of the interesting camos that you could get on your guns. But they weren't animated. They weren't over the top. They were generally very grounded, with the craziest ones being the golden skins. Now, obviously, that did start to change even in the golden age of Call of Duty with Black Ops 2. Some of the camos were a little bit less grounded, a little bit more comical and silly, but they didn't take away from the actual game itself. I'm automatically reminded of, like, the bacon skin in Black Ops 2. But I'm okay with a little bit of silly. I'm okay with a little bit of creative freedom and taking us out of the realism of a military shooter like that, especially in a Black Ops 2 where it's already futuristic at the time. Why not have mechs and a bacon camo? But now I look at Call of Duty, and instead of seeing a bacon camo as the worst thing in the game, I'm seeing Nicki Minaj, Kevin Durant, Ninja Turtles, Peter Griffin, Beavis and Butthead, Michonne, and Rick from The Walking Dead. Like, it just never ends, and it makes zero sense. Every little thing is a cash grab. It's only an excuse to sell some skins. Does Nicki Minaj even play Call of Duty? I have no idea, because the general Call of Duty demographic is not Nicki Minaj's musical demographic. And yet, she's still in the game. Like, maybe I can understand a little bit of Kevin Durant because, you know, easy money sniper. He's been a known gamer for a long time, big Call of Duty fan for a long time. Okay, I can kind of understand where they're coming from by including Kevin Durant in the game. It makes a little bit more sense. But then we start adding Beavis and Butthead, and we start adding Peter Griffin, and that just makes no sense. It went from realistic crossovers to real humans in the real world being put in the game like Nicki Minaj and Kevin Durant to just completely outrageous, over-the-top animated characters implemented into the game for no good reason other than just sell a $20 to $25 bundle. All the while kicking the can down the road and ignoring the fact that the game has a horrible cheating problem and that their anti-cheat Ricochet simply just does not work. But why bother prioritizing making the game functional and fun to play when you are continuing to sell cash grab bundles? Moving on from my problems with the cosmetics of modern Call of Duty, there is a slew of other problems with the game, and if I just wanted to list every single one of them, I guess this video would simply just never end. But one of my biggest problems with the game, and one of the things that I used to love most about the older Call of Duties, was that the social aspect to the game was prevalent, it was unfiltered, it was raw, it was unpredictable, and it was just enjoyable to hop into a Call of Duty lobby, never knowing who you're actually going to talk to, and you could say the most wild things, you could be yourself, hang out with your buddies, and just do whatever you wanted to in these Call of Duty lobbies, be a kid, be a degenerate, and there were pretty much no consequences. But now, if the AI voice recognition anti-fun system that Call of Duty has in the game, and Xbox has and PlayStation has. If you say something that they don't want you to say, instant social ban, and in some cases, instant game ban, where you can no longer play the game based off of some words that you said because someone could possibly get offended. How ridiculous is that? We're not talking about a Viva Pinata voice chat lobby. We're talking about a 18 plus rated mature Call of Duty military shooter, and we're getting banned for saying things that are a little bit controversial. And then we've got the skill-based matchmaking thing. Now, this is more of an opinion. Some people enjoy the skill-based matchmaking system, and some people don't. I personally don't, because it taught me a lot as a Call of Duty player, that whenever I get into a lobby with the good players, I can learn a lot more than just by playing against players that are as good as me. Going 500, I learn nothing. Getting smacked and getting 2 kills and 45 deaths, I learn a lot by watching the kill cams of my opponents who are a lot better than me. I learned way more about the game, and I got way better at the game by playing against people that are better than me than by playing against players that were just as good as me. I thought that Black Ops 2 had the perfect solution to this. If you wanted that skill-based matchmaking, balanced, competitive nature to the game, you hopped into League play. You played the rank mode, and you got balanced with teams that were roughly the same skill level as you, and you duked it out, and it was more of a competitive environment. And then the public matches were just willy-nilly. Whoever you had the best connection with, that's who you got linked up with. Whether they were better than you, worse than you, it didn't matter. It was luck of the draw. But now you don't have that option. You don't have the option at all. You just have quote-unquote ranked mode all the time. Skill-based matchmaking activated all the time. There's no way around it. And for me, the lobbies just aren't fun. I don't enjoy going 10 and 10 or 15 and 15 every single match because I'm playing against players that are just as good as me. It's not fun. It doesn't give me motivation to keep going because I know that the next match I'm going to be with players who are just as good as me, and I'm going to go 15 and 15 again. I don't get that dopamine, that little bump, that high of going 20 and 2 or something like that and having a good score. It's really, really hard to do that when you're in skill-based matchmaking because you have players that are just as smart as you and are playing very similar to you. So it's very, very hard to get a really good streak going, at least for me. I feel like the days of pub stomping are just long gone with Call of Duty. Like, that was a thing back in the day. And I actually made a video about one of my favorite things every single year with Call of Duty was Christmas time, because we could all rely on an influx of Christmas noobs getting the game for the first time, and we were just going to unleash hot fury on these children. And you don't get to do that now because skills-based matchmaking, whether it's Christmas or launch day or 6 months into the Call of Duty lifecycle, you're playing against players who are just as good as you. So it's a much harder experience to get those outrageous scores. It's just sad to me to see the state of the game and where it's at now, with Activision prioritizing only selling bundles and not actually fixing their game, where back in the day, the devs, especially Infinity Ward and Treyarch, even before Sledgehammer came into the picture, they actually cared about the product and could do something about it. That's not to say that developers don't care about the product now, but they have this giant corporation that wants to see the dollar signs go up, breathing down their necks, so they have the manpower to make a bunch of bundles and push those out to customers, but they don't have the manpower to fix their Ricochet anti-cheat. Back in the day, they were quick to balance things that were too outrageously overpowered. Now, obviously, Call of Duty does have trends of having a meta where guns are way better than other guns. But even then, there are so many other weapons in the game that were still usable and fun that if you were a decent player at least, you were still able to counteract some of those problems. Now, of course, I am completely ignoring the fact that Modern Warfare 2, to this day, still has the noob tube problem. But if you're smart with how you navigate the maps in that game, you can often avoid the areas where noob tubings are frequently happening. But even with all that, all the other mechanics and pretty much all the Golden Age Call of Duties had such a fun factor that even with the things that were frustrating or unbalanced at the time, there was still joy and fun to be had out of these games. We didn't have a massive cheating problem. We didn't have the problem of having a cash shop with a bunch of microtransactions and bundles being shoved down our throats. I mean, the worst we really had were like $2 cambos and $15 DLC packs, and that was good stuff. I look back at the golden age of Call of Duty with my rose-tinted glasses and my nostalgia goggles very much so on. But at the same time, when I'm comparing what the games used to be to what the games are now, there is a distinct difference whether you played them back then or not. The games were more polished and the games were more cared for. The company's priorities were not selling you a bunch of microtransactions. They were selling you a good quality product because if the product was good, they would sell more copies and thus make more money. And the reason Call of Duty is what it is today is because of that fact. The games were polished, whether it was the single player, the zombie modes, multiplayer, or even Spec Ops. The modes were polished. The games were fun to play. Treyarch and Infinity Ward were actually able to care for their product and put out a product that players wanted to play year after year. And I was one of those players. But as the priority of Activision shifted from no longer putting out the best possible product to selling as much as they possibly can in their cash shop, my love for the game has dwindled. It went from being a roaring bonfire to being excited every single year, loving from the original Modern Warfare to World at War, to Modern Warfare 2, to Black Ops 1, to Modern Warfare 3, to Black Ops 2, to Call of Duty Ghosts and Advanced Warfare. From that period, I went from a roaring bonfire to now what I consider to be barely even ash. I used to love Call of Duty, and quite frankly, I still do, but not modern Call of Duty. I play these old Call of Duties because I can rely on them for being what they once were. These games are time capsules of what life was like in 2007 to 2014. Call of Duty was one of the premier gaming experiences back then, and now it's one of the franchises that I just avoid at all cost. And it's sad. I've been mourning the loss of a game franchise that I loved more dearly for the last 10 years or so. Yes, there's been some games that have come along the way that were pretty fun, like Black Ops 3 or even World War II well after the patches, but most of these games I just simply don't care about anymore because I know that I'm not going to get a Call of Duty like I used to. A game that I could socialize in without restriction, making new friends at any given moment, hopping into one of those random lobbies. A game that was fun for the sake of being fun. And a game that didn't try to sell you something at every single turn. I love Call of Duty, or rather, loved Call of Duty. I love what Call of Duty used to be, but I despise and I loathe what Call of Duty has become.